Fire burns. That is the belief. It is simpler. It is shared. It is rarely questioned. You touch a flame and you pull your hand away. The pain arrives immediately. The skin changes. The damage is visible. So we say fire burned you. That sounds complete. It sounds final. It sounds like an explanation, but it isn't one. It is a label placed on an experience, a name for an outcome. When people say fire burns, they usually mean fire causes heat, and heat causes damage. That feels sufficient. It feels like the chain has ended, but nothing has been explained yet, because saying fire burns is like saying a fall happens because things fall. It repeats the observation in different words. It tells you what happened, not why it could not have happened any other way. We accept this kind of answer because it works. It predicts pain. It warns children. It keeps us careful, but it hides something. Fire does not reach out. It does not decide. It does not act with intention. Fire is not a thing that does something. It is a process, and processes do not cause things in the way intuition expects. Most of the time, we do not notice this distinction. We do not need to. The stove heats food. The match lights the candle. The flame burns the paper. Everything behaves as expected, so we stop asking. But the moment you slow down and ask what fire actually is, the answer becomes strangely thin. Is fire matter? You cannot pick it up. Is it energy? That is vague. Is it a substance? It leaves nothing behind except different substances. Fire appears, moves, changes shape, and disappears. It has no fixed boundary. It has no stable identity. And yet we speak of it as if it were a thing that does work. That habit is comfortable. It mirrors how we talk about wind pushing trees or waves hitting rocks. But comfort is not accuracy. There is a quiet assumption hiding underneath the phrase, fire burns. The assumption is that fire is the active agent, that fire is the cause, that heat flows outward from it into you, that it is doing something to you. This assumption feels natural because we experience ourselves as agents. We act, we cause, so we project that structure outward. But nature does not organize itself around agency. It organizes itself around constraints. When something happens reliably, again and again, we call it a law. But laws are not commands. They do not tell reality what to do. They describe what reality cannot avoid doing. Fire burning things is not a rule fire follows. It is an outcome that cannot be escaped once certain conditions exist. And the conditions are quieter than we think. The word burn compresses an entire chain of events into a single moment, a chain involving motion, energy, structure, and probability, none of which care about fire as a concept. If you remove the word fire entirely, the phenomenon does not disappear. Something still happens. Something still changes. Something still ends in damage. That should already feel unsettling, because if fire is not essential to burning, then burning is not really about fire. It is about something deeper, and deeper does not mean more complicated. It means more fundamental. Fire does not burn anything. That sentence sounds wrong at first. It sounds like denial, but it is not denying the pain or the damage. It is denying the explanation. The explanation we use is too small for what is happening. What we call burning is a rearrangement, a shift from one stable state to another, and fire is just the visible part of that shift. The glow distracts us. The flame feels active, alive, aggressive. But the flame is not the cause. It is the symptom. If fire truly burned things, then it would have to contain the power to destroy. It would have to carry damage inside it, but it does not. It carries nothing. It is not a container. It is not a force. It is a pattern of motion that appears when conditions allow it and vanishes when they do not. And once you see that, the question changes. Not why does fire burn, but why does anything change at all when conditions are uneven? That question does not belong to fire. It belongs to reality itself. And the answer, when it comes, will not feel dramatic. It will feel unavoidable. Think about waiting. You sit in a room that is too warm. You do nothing. Time passes. Your body begins to sweat. Not because you decided to, not because the room attacked you. It happens because something inside you cannot remain the way it was. Heat moves, not with intention, not with direction chosen. It moves because it has nowhere else to go. Now think about holding a cold glass. Your hand chills where it touches. You do not feel the cold enter you. You feel warmth leave. That distinction matters. Nothing cold flows into your skin. Something warm flows out. But we rarely describe it that way. We say the glass is cold. We say the cold moved into our hand. This language works for daily life, but it reverses what is actually happening. The same reversal happens with fire. When you place your hand near a flame, you feel heat arrive. So you imagine heat being sent outward, but heat is not a substance traveling with purpose. It is a measure of motion. Where motion is uneven, motion redistributes. This is not a rule learned in school. It is something you have felt your entire life. Hot coffee cools, ice melts, rooms equalize. No one tells them to. They do not need permission. They do not wait for causes. They happen because unevenness cannot last. This is where intuition feels strong, because everything seems obvious. Of course, heat spreads. Of course, things cool down. So when something burns, we slot it neatly into that same category. Fire is hot. Your skin is cooler. Heat flows. That seems complete. But notice what we are doing. We are still treating heat as the agent, as if it was something that goes around doing work, as if it were a thing with direction. But heat does not act. It equalizes. It is not a cause. It is a consequence. Your skin does not burn because heat wants to move into it. It burns because the molecules in your skin are forced into motion patterns they cannot sustain. The damage is structural. Imagine stretching a spring too far. The spring does not break because stretching attacked it. It breaks because its structure cannot exist under that condition. Your skin is no different. At normal temperatures, its molecular bonds hold. They vibrate gently. They remain intact. Increase the motion too much, and those bonds fail. No intention, no agression, just incompatibility. We often imagine damage as something added, but it is usually something removed. Structure disappears. Order collapses. Fire does not inject destruction. It removes stability, and it does so without preference. If you put paper near a flame, it changes. If you put metal near the same flame, it often does not. The flame did not decide. The difference was already there. Paper contains bonds that rearrange easily under increased motion. Metal does not, at least not at that temperature. So what burned the paper? Not the fire. The paper burned because it could. That is an uncomfortable sentence, because it suggests that vulnerability is intrinsic, not imposed. Fire did not make the paper flammable. The paper already was. Fire merely revealed it. The same is true for skin. The flame is not special. Any process that raises molecular motion enough will produce the same outcome. Friction can burn. Radiation can burn. Chemistry can burn. Remove fire from the picture entirely, and burning still exists. That should tell you something. We group many different processes under one word because they feel similar to us. Pain feels the same regardless of source, but nature does not care how pain feels. It cares about what structures can persist. At this stage, intuition still feels mostly intact. Heat moves. Structure fail. Everything seems orderly, but there is a quiet problem waiting underneath. If burning is just motion overwhelming structure, then the flame itself should also burn. It should destroy itself immediately, and yet it does not. The flame persists. That persistence is not explained by heat flow alone. Something else is happening. Something that does not fit neatly into everyday experience. And once you notice that, intuition begins to lose its footing. A flame looks stable. That is the first contradiction. It dances, but it remains. It has a shape. It occupies space. If heat destroys structure, why does the flame not destroy itself? Why does it continue? The answer is not that fire is protected. It has no shield. The answer is that fire is not a thing being damaged. It is a process being sustained, and processes do not behave like objects. A waterfall does not erode itself by flowing. A wave does not consume itself by moving. Fire belongs to that category. It exists only as long as conditions feed it. Remove those conditions, and it vanishes instantly. No residue, no injury. That already tells you fire is not the cause of burning. It is the visible trace of something else unfolding. Here is where intuition begins to fail. We are used to thinking in terms of objects interacting. This hits that. That pushes this. Fire does not fit, because fire is not an object. It is the region where chemical rearrangement is happening fast enough to glow. That glow tricks us. It makes the process feel solid, but it is closer to a boundary than a thing. Now consider this. The same flame that burns your skin can warm your hands from a distance without harming you. Nothing changed about the fire. What changed was the rate. The same process produces comfort or injury depending on how quickly energy is redistributed. That should feel strange. If fire were the agent, it would always burn. But it does not. The outcome depends entirely on whether your structure can adapt in time. Burning is not about contact. It is about mismatch. This is where common sense starts slipping. We want a clear line between safe and dangerous, between cause and effect. But the line does not exist. There is only tolerance. Your skin tolerates some motion. It fails beyond that. No moment marks the transition except failure itself. Now consider oxygen. Fire needs it. Remove oxygen and the flame disappears. Did the fire die? No. The process stopped because the conditions stopped. Nothing was destroyed. The flame was not harmed. It simply could not continue. This is the opposite of how causes behave. A hammer breaks when struck too hard. A flame does not. Fire cannot be damaged because it is not a thing. That creates a deeper problem. If fire is not a thing, then it cannot be doing the burning. Only things do things. Processes just happen. So what actually changes when something burns? Matter rearranges itself into states that release motion more efficiently. That is all. The release looks violent because it is fast. But speed is not agency. Speed is circumstance. We like to imagine fire as adding energy to a system. But in many cases, fire is the system shedding energy. The flame is not pushing outward. It is collapsing inward. Fuel contains stored arrangements. Those arrangements are unstable in the presence of oxygen. Once they rearrange, excess motion appears. That motion spreads. The flame marks the transition. But the cause was already there. This is the quiet inversion most people miss. Fire does not supply the energy that burns things. The energy was already stored. Fire merely opens the door. That means fire is not powerful. It is permissive, and permission is not force. At this point, the intuitive story breaks, because we want causes to add something. We want burning to be something imposed. But nothing is imposed. Everything unfolds from what already exists. If the fuel were structured differently, there would be no flame. If your skin was structured differently, there would be no burn. The flame does not care. It has no preferences. This is not a comforting picture. It removes blame. It removes intention. It removes drama. Fire becomes a mirror, not a weapon. And mirrors are unsettling because they do not argue. They only show. What they show, in this case, is that our everyday explanation was never deep enough to begin with. This is the point where the idea needs to be stated plainly. Fire does not burn anything. Burning is what matter does when it cannot remain the way it was under new conditions. Fire is not the cause. It is the sign. This is not a rule. It is a consequence. There is no enforcement mechanism, no universal command. The universe does not say, if fire touches this, it must burn. The universe says nothing. Structures exist only where they can. When conditions shift, structures that cannot persist disappear. Fire marks one such shift. This could not be otherwise. If energy could pile up without rearrangement, nothing would ever change. If structures could survive any amount of motion, nothing would ever fail. But reality does not work that way. Stability is local, temporary, context-dependent. Fire exposes that fact brutally, but it does not create it. The same logic governs everything else. Ice melting, metal softening, stars collapsing, different scales, same structure. Once you see this, the need for a deeper cause fades. There is no hidden agent behind burning, no extra explanation waiting underneath. The explanation stops where inevitability begins. Fire does not need to be explained further because it explains nothing. It is the surface. The deeper layer is constraint. What can exist? What cannot? Under what conditions? That is all. This is why attempts to personify fire always fail. It is not alive. It is not active. It is the visual boundary between two incompatible states of matter. The reason this feels unsatisfying is because we are trained to expect reasons in the form of actors. But nature does not use actors. It uses allowances. When allowances change, outcomes change. Fire is just one of the loudest demonstrations. This also explains why the same fire can feel gentle or destructive, why a candle can comfort and a wildfire can erase. Nothing changed about fire itself. The surroundings changed, scale changed, time changed. Fire did not become more aggressive. It remained exactly what it always was, a process revealing structure. Once you accept this, the word burn starts to feel misleading. It suggests an action where none exists. It suggests a doer where there is only a result. But language lags behind understanding. We keep the word because it is useful, not because it is accurate. And accuracy, in this case, removes mystery rather than adding it. Fire is not special. It is common. It is one expression of a universal tendency. Unevenness cannot persist. When matter holds energy in a form that is unstable, it will not hold it forever. No negotiation, no delay, no choice. This is not a law imposed on reality. It is the shape of reality. And once you see that shape, fire loses its role as an explanation. It becomes what it always was, evidence. At this point, it is natural to ask one last question. Why does reality work this way at all? Why can't unevenness persist? Why must structures fail? But notice what that question is asking. It is asking for a reason beyond necessity, a reason for inevitability. And that kind of reason does not exist. There is no deeper why behind consistency. Consistency is not caused. It is defined. We confirm this not through philosophy, but through repetition. Every experiment, every measurement, every technology that relies on controlled heat, nothing has ever violated this structure. Not once. We do not see flames that destroy without conditions. We do not see burning without instability. We see the same pattern at every scale we can observe. This is not because we have not looked hard enough. It is because there is nothing underneath. Fire does not burn anything. Matter rearranges when it must. The flame is just how we notice. When you return to the original belief, it now feels thin. Fire burns sounds like a story told to stop curiosity, not satisfy it. It is not wrong. It is incomplete. And incompleteness is fine, as long as we recognize it. Reality does not need drama. It does not need causes that feel active. It unfolds according to what can exist. Fire is one of the clearest reminders of that fact, not because it destroys, but because it reveals. And once you see that, there is nothing left to resolve, only something left to understand quietly, and then accept.